Welcome, everybody, to this podcast, this version of Presentation Hell. We are podcasting from Embark Studios here in Tampa, Florida. Today, my guest is Karl Kroeber. He is the founder or co-founder of Projexion. What is Projexion? I see the word project in there, but give the audience in a brief sum, what is Projexion?
Mm-hmm. So Projexion, and I should say I'm CTO and co-founder. Projexion is a product, a BI product in the construction industry. So imagine you're a large general contractor and you want to build a hospital or something like that. There is a lot of data that you accumulate, and obviously, like nowadays, everybody wants to know what's going on in their data. So everybody tries to do analyses and all that kind of stuff. So if you do this for the first time, you're starting with a blank slate. And you use software like Power BI or something like that, just to get an insight into your data, whatever it may be. We basically start a few steps after that. We give you already predefined, pre-analyzed data insight into your project that then you can use, you can use as an executive, that you can use as a project manager, that you can use as an analyst to get really good insight, proven insight into your construction project. And yeah, that's basically the idea. The idea is then to make the construction industry a little bit more efficient, a little bit more effective, and a little bit more collaborative, because it's a lot about placing blame, and ideally all the people in the project pipeline kind of talk to another, use the data to see where stuff is not going as well as it should, and basically nip things in the bud before they happen.
Is this in play? Is it being used right now?
Yes, this is it's used by several larger general contractors. There is this big list called the ENR Top 400, which is basically the 400 largest general contractors, and we have quite a few of those as our customers right now.
Oh, excellent. So let's just take the hospital, for example. If someone's building a hospital, I have a plot of land in this area that's growing, and we need a hospital in there. Would, you hire a general contractor hoping that they've built a dozen hospitals and they know this information intuitively, and that's part of the human element of doing it. You add to it by, when you say the data points, does it mean from the point of foundation to weather to timing of putting it in to the materials that go in to the type of expertise that goes in to the type of concrete that might be mixed in the floorboard, based on being in North America where it gets cold versus being in Florida where it never freezes, and you have a different, are we talking about all of those types of things?
So in the future, we will be talking about all of these things. Currently, we're tapping into project management metadata. So basically, all of these people. I mean, you already named the general contractor, but the general contractor is obviously not the one who's pouring the concrete. That's going to be a subcontractor of some sort. And between that communication and then the communication with the owner who actually wants to build the hospital, there's a lot of metadata that is accrued. For instance, the so-called RFIs, request for informations, when you need to ask the architect a question, hey, this was unclear, what can you specify?
So it sounds like it's more business management at this point, because that's the first stage. The first stage is managing the production line. I hired you as a general contractor, but I know I need concrete in there. You go to the local concrete person and get the specific pieces that go in there. In that process, there's an RFI, there's delivery times, there's all sorts of components. That's the metadata you crunch.
So it's project management metadata, and we look at, for instance, these RFIs. We look at scheduling, which is kind of what you just described, that people are doing the right thing at the right time, basically.
Just-in-time building.
Ideally, it is just-in-time building, but oftentimes it's oh no, out-of-time building. And so, that's what we're basically trying to get in. But the platform that we've built is a fully fledged BI platform. So in the future, we can very well put all of that information in there, and questions is lumber actually deliverable when you want it on your schedule?
Yes,
that's questions that we want to answer in the future. That's not currently, we're a fairly young company. That's not where we are right now, but that is where the whole.
That's where it goes. So basically, if I can think, I've got a building, and I want to build it, and there's a lot of actions I need to put in concrete. I have steel, I have wood, I have electricity, I have plumbing, I have telecommunications, I have location, I have landscaping, I have roofing, I have all sorts of expertise that goes into it. So this, and I'm going to call it the first stage, but it is your real product, and that is managing the purchasing, the RFI, the delivering, and basic project management of all those components bringing together on one site so that the building goes up as most efficient as possible?
So we're not managing it. There is project management software. There's like big ones. One of the big ones is Procore, Autodesk. That may be a name that is familiar to you.
Autodesk's been around.
Yeah, it's been around for a while.
Forever.
They also have like these project management softwares. They exist and they're well established. But one thing that they're all lacking is basically data analysis and data visualization. And you have a problem with siloed data sources. So for instance, let's say the RFIs are in Procore, but your schedule is actually managed in a different tool entirely. And then to pull these data sources together, you need a tool like Projexion to then allow you to make qualified statements about your schedule in conjunction with all the other data.
How did you get into this business? You've got so much data coming out of you right now, and I hear all this stuff. Like, do you wake up one morning and say, "Oh, I've got to do this," or is this something you've been involved in construction for years, and you're like, "This is a pain in the butt, and I need to fix this"? Like, how did you get there? At what point did you recognize there was something there for you?
So I have to confess, I'm not actually from the construction world. I'm from the tech
He
world.
didn't say that out loud.
So actually, my co-founder, who is a weathered veteran of the construction industry, has been in it for like, I want to say decades at this point, also comes... and that's another thing about the construction industry. Everybody in the construction industry kind of knows each other, and they've all been in there for like 20 generations. So like he comes from like
a lot of construction is very family directed and stuff like 100%. That. I totally buy that.
So he's been in that space for a long time, and he's the brains.
His name is
Joe Wilson.
Joe Wilson is the brains. You
Joe
guys
Wilson.
Just heard that.
Joe Wilson.
Okay.
So he is the one who basically came up with the idea originally, and when we first met about like 2 years ago. At an Embark Collective event, the summit, what is it called? The Synapse Summit. Synapse Summit.
Synapse,
yeah.
Here.
We met there, and he was super interested in the whole concept, and he had like an Excel sheet that was like a very large, like basically laying the groundworks for that. And we got to talking, and then he kind of roped me in. And
so I just want to clarify this. Entrepreneurial effort was birthed at an Embark event, Synapse, here in Florida.
That's correct.
2 years ago, we have a viable company, and you've got dozens of clients.
That's correct.
That's a testament to Embark Collective. This is a wonderful place to be, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And like the ecosystem, like the whole, like the coaches and all the like just smart people that like are gathered here have been an invaluable boon to us. So like, absolutely, there is like it's great having an office here, as you well know. We're actually like office neighbors for the listeners.
We office next to each other here at Embark, by the way.
So yeah, yeah, absolutely, it is basically a success story. As I've said, like we're not like.
Do you have paying clients?
We do have paying clients, yes.
So 2 years, you hear that, guys? You want to birth a dream? Come to Embark, because this is where it comes together. Within 2 years, he's gone from zero to an actual paying clients with software that, quite frankly, is going to live for decades, the way I hear it.
Yeah, and hopefully we're going to go even larger. I mean, we're not a unicorn or anything yet. Like, we're still like in the beginning stages of like building this business we've launched.
Listen, you have paying clients.
That's
People
true.
dream of a unicorn, but they also dream of being a rock star.
Yes.
Some of us have to pay or the rest of us have to pay our bills and be successful. And just getting to that point, you're at 99.9% because the vast majority of everyone fails, never even gets close to that. Like the fertile space that we're in right here that brings together like minds is incredible. I can't sing enough about the good praises for Embark, by the
absolutely,
way.
Absolutely. Like they're doing a fantastic job. And yeah, I realize that we're fairly far ahead. I also have to say, like from me personally, I like come from a different space. Like I come from the tech world, and this is not my first startup. So like I bring like a little bit more like experience in that regard. So that's basically my contribution: the technology knowledge and the startup founding knowledge, the presentation knowledge, the sales knowledge, something like that. But Joe is a fantastic guy, like a super quick learner, and he's been like growing himself. Like every founder kind of has to grow themselves too, like quickly, like super rapidly, and yeah, it's a great thing, and it only gets like empowered by everything that Embark has to offer.
Wow, that I didn't know that. Well, I know how powerful this place is. I'm glad you've been able to see it and get a piece of it and actually plant your tree in this area, because quite frankly, it's very fertile. Quite frankly, so many people left the other tech hubs of North America, and quite frankly, those cities aren't hospitable to they're almost punitive to small businesses at this point. And I think we have found a wonderful place here.
Absolutely. I mean, Embark is one of the reasons why I ended up in Tampa, right?
Where'd you come from?
I'm originally from Germany. So like some 2.5 years ago, my wife and I decided, like, she is a New Yorker. She's been living in Germany for like 10 years before that. We met there at a startup. We got married, and we always kind of thought about moving to the US, but basically like 2.5 years ago, when like COVID was still going on in Germany, we were like, okay, now we want to
give it the shot,
and we did that. It was a kind of haphazard decision. We basically like were on vacation, and it was like a whole like basically a snap decision. And then we called our immigration attorney and asked them, hey, is it possible for me to get a green card? This is a snap decision. They were like, yes, actually, it's specifically for that thing, there is a way to go, called an adjustment of status, and like a whole process. In any case, we made that decision, and one of the big questions is, where would we end up in the United States? And we wanted to be like closer to the family, which is in Miami, but also somewhere where there's a lot of startups, because my wife is really passionate for startups. So she actually also works at an Embark company. And she suggested Tampa, and I think she was in contact even in Berlin, like where we're living in Berlin in Germany, with someone from the Embark Collective, like someone from some company here. I don't know the exact story, but that's how we visited Tampa for the first time, fell in love, and then we stayed.
God, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
This episode of the Presentation Hell podcast is brought to you by Shuffler. Shuffler is AI presentations. Also, the Presentation Hell book. You can find out the strategies that make your company present better and close more business. AI is artificial intelligence.
That's right.
BI is business intelligence.
That's right.
So you're taking the nuts and bolts of the business of building buildings and making it more efficient. Once you've got all this in there, then you'll be able to take AI and put it in there. So it's like a step
right
along the way.
Yes. The big caveat with AI is, if you want to train AI, you need a lot of data as a baseline.
That's right.
So you need a lot of customers, and in that specific space, you need a lot of customers who are willing to let you work on their data for ML purposes.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, if we're talking about very large scale construction, there is NDAs, there is like regulations and so on and so forth. So
let's kind of take that back a little bit, because I'll talk about my business a little bit. I do presentations, and we were like, we're going to do AI presentations right off the bat. And every company, every one of our clients went, no, we don't let people do that, because if you're a bank, you don't want your competitor's bank information to be dumped into some presentation somewhere because it got from AI. And for us, what we found out is that our presentation libraries are a data set of that specific company. So when we take our AI and point it to just their library, then the information is proper, is fast, is compliant with only their stuff, and their slides get recommended in a proper brand, in a proper smarter, and everything goes in. So the basic concept of AI, the world's out there, it makes it, that scares the crap out of them. But if you delegate it to the data set that's just theirs, then you get an actual AI personality based on that data set.
I mean, in general, the question is, what type of AI are you going for? I mean, in your case, you're going for generative AI, so you're trying to like make something new from something existing. What we're talking about is more predictive or calculative AI that basically learns from patterns within larger data sets. Let's say not just one hospital, let's say 20 hospitals, 50 hospitals. What are the patterns within those projects and the project management data that make a project successful or not?
If you want an MRI scanner in your hospital, it needs to be designed into the basement because it has better radioactive feelings, and to do that, you need to get the construction of it before the cement's I'm making this stuff up.
Something like that.
But like,
or like, I mean, you could say like, if you have a schedule where the cementing happens at the end, that's probably a bad thing. Like, I don't know. So
yeah,
like
they'll
patterns that don't
it.
make sense. And if you want to detect those patterns, and the nice thing about that type of AI is you don't really run the risk of like I don't know, accidentally showing someone else's data because you're not generating anything.
That's right.
You're just saying like, this is a good pattern, this is a bad pattern.
See, I have, for me, in my presentation libraries, I have two things. One is you create your library and then it uses the slide as a suggested slide. So it doesn't create the slide. The second piece actually creates the slide and then you can choose to incorporate it. So if you have a slide library about your entire company, who you are, what you do, how you do it, lay it out, the process, the plant, your case studies, it'll pull all those slides and put them in order on a slide level. Then you have another component that says, make me a new slide comparing East and West sales. And then that slide gets made based on your design and you bring it into your existing stuff and you hit save and you're out the door.
That's cool.
That's me. That's AI presentations. That's Shuffler. That was my quick ad there for you guys. Shuffler is AI presentations for your enterprise. So let's pause for a minute because we jumped far ahead. I want to know a little bit about where you came from. You as a person, like you obviously came to Tampa from Germany. We've got that. Your wife's from New York. Is that New York City?
It's not quite New York City, but from around New York. It's a little place, 10 minutes.
Called?
Nyack.
I know where Nyack is, across the river over the Tappan Zee River.
That's right. It's now the Major Cuomo Bridge, apparently. Not the Tappan Zee Bridge anymore.
I was in. I grew up in the area. I'm familiar with.
Oh, see, okay, perfect. Yeah.
I moved from Tampa from New York City 2 years ago.
Oh,
and I lived in New York for 28 years prior to that.
Awesome. Yeah. So you'll know it well.
I understand that totally. So, but where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to elementary school? Where were you born? What brought I want more information about you.
So I am I was born in Germany. Like I'm a German born, German family.
Beer drinking.
Beer drinking, soccer playing. No, actually, I neither beer nor soccer is kind of my thing.
Schnitzel eating.
Yes, all of that thing. And no, I'm actually, I was born in Germany, in Berlin specifically, and I was always interested in computer science. I knew I wanted to study computer science from like a fairly young age. Did that actually in the Technical University of Chemnitz. Chemnitz is like in Saxony. That's like a different part of Germany, and studied there. And worked for my first 3 years at a company that did measurement data analysis. So kind of
same stuff you're doing right now in a way.
And it's actually very weird because like after all that time, I'm coming back to that whole field and I'm like, I'm getting inspired by that tool that I worked on like 15 years ago. And so actually, that's what I was doing, crash test analysis and all that stuff, like really cool things. We would go into like large companies of the automotive industry or like motor companies that design and build like ship engines and stuff like that. So really, really interesting stuff.
So hang on, let's stop for a second. How did you get there? Was it your own interest in secondary school that presented the opportunity? Was it your neighbor? Was it dad? Was it what put you in this situation that allowed it? Did you play on a soccer team and the coach thought you were brilliant? What?
No, I was actually. I studied computer science, and like everybody still needs and wants programmers. So like that was always a good like door opener. And I met this gentleman, Dr. Sünder, who was the owner of that company that I was talking about. And
where did you meet him?
I met him actually at a university event where he was presenting because he wanted like to meet students to hire them, basically.
Did he speak and you go up and talk to him? How did you seek like? See, what I'm trying to do here is give the actual event that led to the connection that changed your life, so to speak. What are the real elements of it?
I am not sure if he spoke at that event, but like it was basically like one of these like get-togethers. Like every company can kind of like show what they're doing and so on and so forth. And we just got to talking. He was a very personable, well-spoken guy. I mean, he's still around, but he doesn't own the company anymore. And yeah, he like got me super interested in what they're trying to do, and I was always super interested in data and that kind of stuff. And so it was kind of a natural fit. And then I worked for that company.
Hang on, a natural fit. How did he hire you? At what moment? There's one thing it says it's a natural fit, and I'm just there. There was some moment where you were talking to him, and he's like, "Damn, I need Karl on board." Or did you come with a resume and say, "I want a job"? I want to know the nuts and bolts of how this happened. Like,
yes. It was actually, I think, a fairly easy decision on his part because I came very cheap because I was still studying. So it was like a next to university type job, not a super high salary, talking about like an hourly rate of, I want to say
So you were asking for a job, you were at school, you were bright-eyed,
yes. Uh-huh.
you were bright-eyed
Yes.
saying, I would love to be here, and he kind of saw it. So you were
Yes.
using the natural relations of a university that puts them together.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I don't know like what the hourly rate was. I want to say it was like 10 or 12 euros, which is like, I don't know, like $15 or something like that. So it was a like for development resources fairly cheap thing. And I actually, and this was a really interesting thing, I didn't start necessarily developing for them. I actually did sales for them in some regards because he wanted his software to be used in schools in like physics class to just analyze data. It was really cool. You can like pull all kinds of data and they're connected to like measurement devices and like and like visualize data. And he wanted it to be used in schools for like the next generation. And so what I did, I went to schools and I was basically talking to physics teachers, chemistry teachers. Hey, is there an angle here where we can like supply the software for you free of charge and you use it maybe in school?
So you realize he took you out of a school to put you into schools.
Yeah. I think
which is smart because it's still in your blood. You're comfortable in that location.
High school wasn't that far away, so speaking to high school teachers at that point, it was only like 4 years after high school, so you're kind of like still.
How long did you work there?
I worked at, I worked during my university studies for, I want to say, like 1.5 or so years. And afterwards, he hired me like full time as a developer. And I worked there for like another 2 years, about that time.
And how did that lead into your next, where you know?
Well, I, at some point, I actually don't know what the catalyst for that was, but I wanted to basically like at some point move back to Berlin. My mother was still living in Berlin, and so like I want to be close to her and all that stuff. So I moved back to Berlin, and that's when I first got into the startup world. Because you have to imagine that like other company, very classical German, call it Mittelstand, like a small family owner, like individual owner run company, 20 employees. And then like basically with going to Berlin, I dipped my foot in the startup world. And then I started at Omio. Back then they were called Go Euro. It's like a multimodal travel search engine type thing. And started in a tech team and then became a team lead there for like a specific part of the tech team.
So you got the startup bug after that.
Correct.
And was it because you were hired somewhere or something? Like what intrigued you to go that way? What caused you to say, I'm not working here, I'm jumping ship and going startup?
Yeah, so you have to imagine Berlin's ecosystem, especially when it comes to companies, is fairly one-sided because Berlin doesn't have like large industries per se. So like you like historically speaking, there is not like large factories. Like every time you think of Germany, you think of like, oh, Mercedes-Benz, like BMW, car production, all of the stuff that you think about when you think Germany, all of that stuff does not happen in Berlin. Berlin, historically speaking, always had a lot of service industry, and now they have a lot of startup industry, so like tech startups. So they were at that point already a pretty major tech startup hub in Germany. And yeah, I don't know why I wanted.
Location had something to do
location
with it.
Definitely.
So
yes.
Location, that makes a
But I knew I wanted to go back to Berlin. I at that point wasn't sure like what I wanted to work at, like what type of company. But I think I just applied to like a few companies that sounded interesting. And hey, multimodal travel, like all of that stuff sounded interesting. And I applied and I got the job. So it was not like a. I don't know. I didn't know exactly that I want to work at that company.
See, here's the thing. This is what I'm getting to. Part of it is. Nobody knows exactly what they want to do. Let's talk a little closer to the mic here. Nobody knows exactly what they want to do, and generally people fall into it. If you go back a generation or two, someone gets out of high school and they get a job at a butcher shop, and 20 years later they're a butcher. And so, or someone gets a job as an electrician, and next thing you know they're an electrician. Or they get a help at doing roads or doing X-rays, and next thing you know they're an X-ray technician. People don't realize that. So now that you've been bit by the startup bug, where'd you meet your wife?
Actually, at that very startup. So since this was a travel startup, there was this whole thing where you could submit like pictures from your travels to like a picture wall that they put up in the office, and I submitted a picture of mine. And she liked the picture. She was immediately interested in me, and then basically conquered me, so to speak. I'm a developer. I'm not like a what do you call that? A charmer of women per se, but she charmed me and conquered me.
That's beautiful. So. It's actually much more traditional than you might think because in today's age, it's supposed to the man makes the first move or ask them out. But in older days, I should say, the woman, and this is very stereotypical, but the woman would drop the hanky in front of the guy who she was interested in. She makes the first move to let him know that he should pursue her.
Yes.
And that's and
basically
ironically
exactly what she
right.
did.
That's what she did.
Yeah, absolutely. And so
it's cute.
We've and like she succeeded obviously, and we've been together ever since. And at some point we left Go Euro, went to like different places. I worked in like a few other startups, and then I actually started a company, my own software development agency in Germany. Like grew that bigger. We started other companies, mostly in the adult education space. So the adult education is a big thing in Germany because you get like certifications, and everybody loves these certifications.
Most adults need a lot of education.
That is an additional thing, and so it's a big market there. And then like we sold some of these companies, and that's basically, those were like my first startups.
Okay, let's take it. So now you've been through the basic process. You're in technology. You've done some cool stuff. You've had little startup success. You made a little money. Now, why Tampa? What was like, if you're coming, it sounds like you're in Berlin. You've got a hook to New York. New York's got a thriving tech scene. You can pick anywhere in the country to go. What were the reasons that made Tampa special?
Yes. Okay. So basically, if it were up to my wife, New York would have been on the table. But I do really not like large cities.
Okay.
So it's too much like hustle and bustle for me. So we basically, when we made that snap decision to move to the US, it was a big open question. Where would we end up? I mean, Austin, Texas, Seattle, New York City. There's a million things on the table. And we chose Florida because her family,
that's a good reason to start.
Lives around like in Miami, and Tampa because she had that connection to that like one startup guy also from the Embark Collective, who kind of like, he was by pure chance like based in the Embark Collective and said like, hey, check out Tampa. And then we checked out Tampa. That's when I said like we fell in love, and that's how it happened. So like,
you fell in love in Germany. You fell in love in Tampa.
That's
again.
right.
This is the
That's
theme
right.
of Projexion is you're falling in
me
love
falling
again.
In love. Yes,
and
absolutely.
here you are, and it seems to be working out. This is pretty impressive. I like the way it's gone. I have a similar trajectory. I didn't know anybody in Tampa, and coming down here and meeting with Embark and everything, kind of fell in love with what's here. It's a beautiful facility. If you're truly an entrepreneur, and I use that word truly an entrepreneur, very like, it almost is cool to be an entrepreneur nowadays. And people think that if they're doing someone's hiring them to do some work, they're an entrepreneur. That's a consultancy. That's, you're being paid for what entrepreneurs create, businesses that can grow well beyond that human being and grow well beyond what's going on. They use people and products to create a service that is being consumed out there.
Yes.
And something that grows, not just you're buying my time, or I can make something nice, or I'm here, teaching a class. That's entrepreneurial, yes. But the foundation of what Embark provides is creating those systems that multiply. You won't get in here if you don't have a system that can multiply, that's truly there. And it's something that's special. I'm glad you recognized it, because I did, and I planted my whole home here.
Yeah, absolutely. And like as I said, so far so good. And Embark Collective is helping out. So it was a good decision. I don't regret that decision in the slightest.
Me neither. So here, let's finish up right now. Why don't we tell just one more time, what is Projexion? How do they find you? How do they tell it to the camera here? And, give a little wrap up from it, and we'll wrap up this podcast.
Yeah. So Projexion is a BI software for the construction industry that comes preloaded with a lot of intelligence that makes like your construction project more efficient and more effective. If you're interested in checking it out, because you're, for instance, you work at a GC, maybe you work at an owner's rep, maybe you work somewhere in like large scale construction, go to projexion.io. Projexion.io.
It's written right down there. You can see it right there.
Click the link. And that's basically where you can find out everything. There's like videos. You can get a demo. You can get in touch with us. And that's basically it.
Karl, thank you for coming on this episode of Presentation Hell. Thank you for listening today. Presentation Hell, coming to you from Embark Studios in Tampa, Florida.
Thank you.